Hello and welcome to Wildly Curious, a podcast that tells you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura.
And I'm Katie, and we are going to continue these blinds. I just got like blown out by light.
Blasted by the sun.
Hold on, wait. Hang on. Okay. That should be normally record much later. Oh my god,
Yeah.
this is so much.
You're like, it's too sunny. I only record at night.
No, normally we do. Hang on. We were sitting there talking for like several minutes, and it wasn't an issue. Then all of a sudden, the sun's like, I need to be out. Here I am, guys. Yeah. Did I hear someone needed some sunlight and just blind? And there it goes.
Volcanoes, but not sun.
It's already going away. All right. See, look, are you kidding me right now? Okay, continue.
Well, you were about to say, and we're back to talking about volcanoes.
Yeah, Minisodes. So we're having 2 more weeks of the Minisodes before our regular season kicks off. So yeah, volcanoes. We're talking about volcanoes, things that have made, created, and made cooler, made, destroyed, created, made cooler. I feel like I'm missing one
It's been a couple
in
weeks,
there.
guys, for us. So it's definitely made cooler or found or destroyed. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But one of them so let's do this next one. This is all of the. This one I just focused on the volcano itself because
Okay, cool.
It has gone through a lot, and I just couldn't stop myself from going down the rabbit hole.
This poor volcano.
So I wanted to talk about the angry Mount Vesuvius, which is one of the most well-known volcanoes. But even though it's super well-known, I still didn't know its whole history.
Yeah.
So, a little bit about it, and we've talked about this in a couple past episodes, but real quick, Mount Vesuvius is in southern Italy. It is a stratovolcano on a subduction zone. And for those of you that don't know what those words mean, you should go back and listen to our volcano episode.
Great plug.
But of subduction, one plate going under the other, and that's where the most active volcanoes are found. It's just really volatile. It's also called, I've never heard this term, a soma volcano, meaning it formed within the crater of an even older volcano.
Oh, geez. No
Which
wonder
I had no idea.
Yeah. Double volcano.
The older volcano is called Mount Soma, so I guess that's named after when this happens.
Okay.
As of 2013, because you never know, it could always be changing here. So 2013, it was 4,203 feet tall, but changes every time it erupts.
Yep.
And it has a large ridge, on the north face, because it's almost like in 2 tiers, kind of still, because of a volcano within a volcano.
Yeah.
So between the big ridge on it and the tip-top cone is the Valle del Gigante, the Giant's Valley.
Ooh, okay.
Which is pretty cool sounding.
Yeah, that sounds really neat.
At the tip of the cone is a large
Wait,
crater.
are you gonna say why it's called the Valley,
No, they
Giants?
didn't say. I just assume it's just because it's so big, and it's a small valley before you hit the top.
Yeah.
At the top is a large crater about 2,000 feet across and 1,000 feet deep. So it's pretty typical volcano, when you picture one. Scientists think it formed only about 17,000 years ago, so it's relatively young. That's a baby volcano.
Yeah, as far as rocks go, that's pretty young.
Yeah, it's a baby. People have always lived near volcanoes, especially near here. Today, more than 10 million people live on or near the volcano. So, that's a lot of people living on an active volcano.
Yeah, that's a ton. Yeah.
Yeah, because we talked in our volcano episode about, the fact that volcanoes have very fertile soil. So, it's a great place to farm. You can grow some great grapes for wine. There's just a big risk. And particularly Mount Vesuvius, which has a history of being extremely volatile. So here's where we start talking about the drama. It is a series of cataclysmic eruptions over time. So the volcano had been dormant for the first, 79... No, wait. At this point, it would have been 77,000 years. Or no, wait. No, we said it was 17, right?
Yeah, 17,000.
It's about 15,000 years of dormancy.
Okay.
About 2,000 years ago, in 79 AD,
that was the first time for so long.
Blew up. Yeah, I don't know. It was it formed, which probably was pretty extreme.
Took a while.
But after that, jiggles.
Just cat.
Just button right in my face. that is when the most cataclysmic eruption happened to date, which was Pompeii, which is what everyone knows this volcano for.
Yeah.
But years of earthquakes had been happening before 79 AD. There was like the rumblings. Yeah. And nobody was like, I guess, putting two and two together that like earthquake might equal volcanic eruption.
Yeah.
But
they're all like, we all just shook a little. Okay. Like,
yeah, well, and who knows? At that time, they might still have been thinking it was like the gods.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, somebody's doing something wrong. We need to stop. Yeah.
But the resulting eruption buried the cities of Pompeii, which most people know about, but it also buried Atlantis and Stabiae.
At the same time?
Yeah, and that was just under ash, and Herculaneum with mud. So just multiple cities taken off the map.
Yeah.
And they know exactly what happened with this eruption because there is an actual record. Like, there's a first eyewitness of what happened. For the mostly first eye. So just after midday, like when the eruption first happened, just after midday, ash, rock, and other debris rained down, covering the city 9 feet deep at a rate of 10 to 15 centimeters per hour. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah. That's terrifying, though.
But enough time that, like, at first you'd think that first eruption actually probably people could have started to get out in time.
Yeah, like, hey, guys, something bad is coming.
Yeah, ash and rock is happening. By evening, the roofs are collapsing, and larger stones are falling, and they can no longer see the sun. That's when absolutely you needed to have gotten out of Dodge.
Yeah.
But then it just gets even worse, because, the main eruption, it happened, but it took time for that debris to fall. Over the next 7 hours, so from evening to the next morning, pyroclastic surges, so pyroclastic fire, surges of gas, ash, and volcanic glass blasted through the city, reaching temperatures of 570 degrees Fahrenheit.
God.
So it was like pulses, like these pulses of heat, ash, and glass.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it even in a past episode. I think it was in one of our nature news that they found a human brain that had turned to glass. It happened so quickly under such insane heat. So most people died within 15 minutes due to suffocation, thank goodness.
Yeah.
A total of 19 to 23 feet of ash and rock covered the city.
God.
And in just Pompeii, over 2,000 people died, but they think that overall the casualties are much higher because of those other cities.
Yeah.
They didn't have accurate records at the time, at least very much, of who was found and who was injured and things like that.
Yeah, those Death Pulses, though, great band name. But that had a bit...
That is a great band name.
Even if for some reason you even remotely survive, can you imagine that first one coming through?
No. Because it'd be I'm imagining you'd see it, because it'd be a wave of heat and ash. Yeah. So my mom and I went to go see the movie Pompeii in the theaters. I think we were in high school when it came out. No, actually it's probably older than that, because it had Kit Harington in it, which is basically where we went to see it. Okay. And no spoilers, but Pompeii blows up.
Yeah.
The surge of the heat is, I can't even imagine how terrifying.
Gosh.
And so the first-hand account is, what was his name? Pliny the Younger is the one who wrote this, because he was on a boat and he could see what was happening. And then people were coming who had survived and were telling him his dad actually died in this, because his dad was part of the fleet that were close by, and the boats got even taken out.
Yeah. God.
So that was the first and the worst. But over the next 1,000 years, it erupted another 9 times.
Dang.
The one in 512 was so devastating that the locals weren't required to pay taxes that year, which is significant because it means they had nothing left to give.
Yeah.
So the government was like, okay, fine, this year, no taxes. And we all know how the government is about taking taxes. It doesn't matter how poor you are.
So the fact that they were like, let's just put a pause on this for a year, that was a bad one. So that was significant. Yeah.
In December of 1631, a series of earthquakes led to another huge eruption that killed 3,000 people, which is more than Pompeii, but less cataclysmic overall. But we're also starting to get more populated now.
Yeah.
And then it goes into this
by this point, they should... Yes, it doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough that you should weigh your chance. But again, it could not happen in your lifetime. You know what I mean?
Because it didn't happen for 15,000 years, so, you know...
But then from one to another, because how many years was it from one to the next?
9 times over 1,000. I mean, it's happening every 100 years.
Like, but that could be, I mean, because of back then and people not living as long, it could not be in your lifetime.
But for your own children's sake, you'd be like, you guys should go.
Maybe you guys want to consider
this is not a family business. I promise. But then something weird happens again, and we still don't really know about volcanoes a lot, as in far as like when do they erupt and why do they happen. It's secrets under the earth. We're really never going to know some things. But after the eruption in 1631, it starts to go through a series of what's called of cycles. And the cycles are quiescent, which means when the mouth of the volcano is obstructed, and eruptive, when the mouth opens up. But it is basically always active now. It was like dormant active. It is now always active. So since 1631, the volcano has never slept. Yeah. It's just sometimes blocked and sometimes open.
Sometimes not. Interesting.
Leaking. So these cycles can last for years. There is no pattern to this. It's not like it's every 20 years. It's, These cycles, so over the next 300 years, so from 1631 to the early 1900s, there were 21 eruptions.
Jeez.
So in just 300 years, it escalated insanely.
Yeah.
The last eruption in 1944, so when the world is falling apart anyway with World War II, then there's a volcanic eruption.
Let's add to this. Yeah.
Ash rained down in Albania, which is across the Mediterranean. It's significant.
Yeah.
So in total, that volcano that we know of has had 31 eruptions, 8 of which were considered major eruptions and killed lots of people. And it's still not sleeping. It just hasn't erupted since 1944, so we are certainly due. I hope it doesn't, for everyone's sake.
We certainly do.
Not to make everyone who's living in and near Mount Vesuvius panic.
Yeah.
On the plus side, though, in nature news, directly relevant to this, and so that all of you who live in Italy don't panic, we have just discovered that we can now perhaps predict volcanic eruptions due to trees. Because the trees are always trying to tell us stuff.
It is, yeah.
Apparently, the scientists have seen from satellites, when there is a lot of CO2 under the ground, the trees grow quickly, and their leaves actually change angles to do with like absorption of carbon dioxide and all that stuff. And the amount of trees that are turning their leaves can be seen from satellites in space. And so we think that that is the earliest warning sign. So
which is insane, because if we're relying on the growth of trees, which is already extremely slow, then like you said, something is coming.
Yeah, but how ironic is it that we're relying on the plants to tell us? We still haven't figured out as human beings.
Plants. Yeah. And the ones that the trees are just let me just look away.
Or it's slowly waving.
Yeah.
There's danger. So once again, thanks to the trees. They're always trying to tell us things that we don't know. And now, thankfully, hopefully, we can use that knowledge to predict volcanic eruptions.
That's awesome. I need to go down that rabbit hole.
Right?
You know me and my trees, so I really want to go down that and read a bit more about that.
Yeah. And that is Angry Vesuvius.
Right, guys, we have one more week of a mini-sode, and then after that, we'll be kicking off our season 12. So make sure you go check us out on YouTube, subscribe to us there, and Patreon, and we will talk to you next week.
See ya.